Hello and welcome to the Hotel Marketing Show. In this podcast, we're going to talk about all things hotel marketing. We're going to talk about things that are happening in the industry, insights, things that all hotel marketers or anybody that has an interest in hotel marketing wants to know about. My name is Victoria.
And I'm Nadine.
And we're the hosts of the Hotel Marketing Show. To kick off the podcast today, in this episode, we're going to be talking with Thea, co-founder of MetricsDriven, about e-commerce practices for the hotel industry. And we had such a great chat with Thea that this is just a quick note to say we've split this podcast into 2 episodes. So part 1 is what you're listening to right now, and part 2 will be coming out in 2 weeks.
Both parts are equally amazing, first of all. I think that our session with Thea was just so nice because she really is a true expert when it comes to hospitality, and it was just a real pleasure to have her here. So if you listen to the first one, the second one even better.
In the second part of this episode, we talk more about how hotels can measure the success of the things that Thea is talking about in the first part of this episode. So you definitely want to make sure that you check out the second part as well, because we talk a lot. The number of statistics that Thea brings, we say it in the first episode, but Thea is an absolute expert.
Here's part 1 of our session we had with Thea, and we talked all things e-commerce and hospitality. So have a listen and enjoy. I'm very excited to have you here with us today, Thea. Thank you for taking the time. And of course, for everyone who's listening and doesn't know who you are, could you give us a little bit of a background to who you are and what it is that you do?
Hi. Thanks for having me on the podcast first. I'm a huge fan of Hotel Champ and of you guys. We've been working together for a while now. Yeah, I'm the co-founder of MetricsDriven. We're a tiny little startup doing data services in the hotel industry. Before that, I worked in a German meta search company where I ran kind of partnerships and opened up new markets for meta search with hotels and with different tech companies. And before that, I was in SiteMinder, which is like this huge channel manager out of Australia, and there worked with hotels on their distribution and everything, balancing out the OTAs and the direct bookings and all this stuff that kind of cool that it ties into our topic today. And before that, I ran a small family hotel, which got me into hotel tech. And then, when you're on the operational side and you think, okay, I can automate this stuff, so let's find tech that does that, and that was ages ago, and then it kind of went from there.
The red thread is hospitality.
Thea is like the definition of like a hotel industry expert, in my opinion, like 100% expert.
Yeah, as I said in our email, I don't feel like an expert because in our space it moves so fast, right? You guys see it on your end, especially especially the technology now after COVID is moving so fast that we are, if you're an expert, then you're doing yourself a disservice because 5 minutes afterwards, somebody already figured out something better than you. So you better be, humble and have a Zen mindset of.
The Zen mindset is definitely important. It's like you close your eyes, you blink once, and then something else has emerged in that time. Hey, Thea, what do you do in your free time? So hospitality, tech, all of that, and what do you like to do to kind of take your mind off work? Is there something that you've discovered for yourself now, during the pandemic, after the pandemic? Anything?
Yeah, I got back into gardening after leaving Germany, and now we are in Croatia. Have a nice little garden with growing veggies, and that's been after 2 years of lockdown. I can't express to you how freeing that is to watch a little plant grow. And I would be happiest if I could just sit outside and watch that little plant grow all day long and not do anything else in the sun. That's pretty much like. You learn to appreciate stuff like that after you've been locked up in Germany for 2 years and couldn't get anywhere.
Yeah, I can really empathize with that. I think it's so nice once you actually get to go outside again and see something blossom or grow. I know Victoria has her roof terracing gardening going on.
Love gardening. I have very green thumbs. I totally understand when you say you just want to sit outside and watch the plants grow. Like that is like that's my dream.
Awesome.
That's so good. And Thea, what's something that you want to see in the hotel industry in the second half of 2022?
As we are seeing like this kind of travel recovery, right? We're also starting to see the choke points of travel that is understaffed on all levels right now. So we are seeing, airlines are basically falling apart, and I would love to see that this kind of balances out to the end of the year and ongoing, but that it doesn't hinder the recovery of travel in general and of hotel businesses, which seem to be doing quite well. I mean, I was reading in advance for this, some statistics and stuff, and hotel rates have gone up and they are now above levels of 2019. I would love to see that trend continue because it means, better profitability for hotels. And then the staff thing, it just has to catch up. And that's just something that is very hard to handle right now. So I think that the staffing problems and the human side of the business is actually kind of trailing behind the actual wave of travel that is happening. And I would like the wave of travel to continue, but that the hotels actually get enough resources that they can fix this, not maybe the wrong word is fix, but that they can catch up to the needs of the travelers, and that it doesn't backfire in forms of like bad reviews and unhappy guests, because that can then create quite a long-lasting effect. As we know, feedback online doesn't really go away ever, and that would be something. I hope it balances itself out. That's my desire for the rest of this year.
I think it's so nice also that you mentioned this, because it's a perfect kind of summary of some of the answers we've heard before, of saying higher prices for hotels, travel resuming back to normal. And I think that you really brought it to the point of saying now we're at this point where we got a little bit of that back. The airports are overcrowded because people want to travel. The hotels can set their prices higher, but it's a bit of a disbalance, like you said, because it's still playing catch up to some certain extent.
Yeah. There's been an interesting survey done in the US, actually. I don't know how it is in Europe, but where it was basically asking the travelers, will they adapt their travel budgets based on the increases in costs of everything, basically. Around 23% said that they would cancel their travel plans and plan something nearer their homes. So it's kind of like what we saw back in pandemic, right? When we had these drive markets that were dominant then. It might be, I know for us here that we just thought about, okay, maybe for summer, maybe we go somewhere for a week or something. I was like, yeah, no, you know what? I'm not dealing with the airports. We might take a car and just drive somewhere near to have a little bit of a wait time. And I think that will, the costs factor and the just unpleasantness of dealing with the crowds and the disorganization, it might actually help in the end, right? Because we learned to be happy with our little gardens, and even sitting in a little garden might be, might do it for this year.
Yeah, it's a big change from being, isolated or locked down to all of a sudden being at the airport again with like thousands of people, because people started to enjoy partially also their little bubbles and their space and their gardens. And now all of a sudden it's just everyone back in one big room. It's kind of weird.
Crazy. We were talking this morning on our team meeting about holidays coming up, and one of our team members was saying like that she'd been thinking of doing a trip, but now seeing like what's happening at the airport, she's like, well, I'm going to actually rethink, like maybe there's another airport I fly out of, or do I even do the trip that I was planning in the first place? So it's like, yeah, it really is having like an actual flow-on effect to people.
And if you think about it from the hotel side, it again opens up an opportunity for hotels to attract their local guests, right? To create packages and to create some locally themed offer that might attract these people like me and like your colleague who doesn't really want to deal with the pain of travel. So that brings us into our topic of e-commerce and of basically hotel marketing, where there are a lot of opportunities in this, right? The opportunity is in different segments that the hotels can target here, but also in the messaging that has to be adapted to the current situation. And that is something that, we spoke about story brand and the book and all of this stuff. And that's basically our whole, I think, topic for today, where I'm seeing like on a lot of hotel sites, and I was looking for good examples for you because you asked me that, right? It is really hard to find hotels that have changed their messaging even since COVID. It is really, I find it so weird, because even some that I knew, for instance, Roxy in New York, that was my example, like last year when I did a course on this, the messaging that they had back then in COVID has now gone back to the generic, room, blah, blah, blah. And like, why? So I don't know how you guys are seeing it with because you are deep in that area more, right? How has your experience been?
I think it's so true. It's not like we've adjusted to like, I don't want to say like new normal, because I feel like that's such a cliche, but I almost feel like they haven't adjusted to post-pandemic life. It's like you're saying, they've just switched back to what they were doing pre-pandemic. And I think exactly like what we've been talking about, things are quite different now for even like the way that people are traveling or the way that they feel about travel as well. I was looking at how people actually feel about traveling after the pandemic, and people are still unsure, or they are still feeling, not super confident about traveling and taking risks with their travel. And I think that there's a huge opportunity. I'll get you to like talk a little bit more about StoryBrand in a second, but just to even like hint at that, I think there's so much that hotels can do with these kind of proven principles to help their guests in this post-pandemic world.
Yeah. So let's introduce StoryBrand, what we are actually talking about, because I don't think anybody
everyone's like Googling right now, like, what is StoryBrand?
Yeah. Well, StoryBrand is a book, and they have a course in the site, and it's all kind of like a network of stuff. But I would recommend everybody to start with the book. It's a book that, like, I would say it summarizes about 30 old school marketing books in a very nice way. And it basically speaks about how the positioning of your customer, and it doesn't matter if it's a guest or if it's an e-commerce buyer or any kind of buyer, how your messaging has to shift and actually to put the buyer in the center. I think that would be the bare bones description of it. I would really recommend that everybody just goes and reads the book, because it will provide so much more context than we can explain, by coming back to the book. But basically what the idea is that your messaging on your website, on your booking engine, on any marketing material, on any online presence that you have, hotels are very notorious in talking only about themselves, right? We see that on almost every website. Oh, a beautiful building settled in the old neighborhood of blah, 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 and having this kind of rooms, blah, blah, blah. Look, nobody cares, right? What I want to know is, how will my vacation, how will my holiday, and how will my stay in your hotel be worth the money that I'm paying you? And preferably, will I be able to experience something that is, important to me? Because everybody in any kind of e-commerce looks, what does it do to me, right? What does your product do for me? And this is something that I think, I don't know any other industry that spends more text on their sites and tells less about what the guest is actually getting, right? And I mean, this is not like a critique of anybody. It's just how the whole industry has been trained to work. And then even better in the whole thing is that everybody looks at OTAs and says, okay, that's how our sites are supposed to look like. Or even better, that's how our booking engines are supposed to look like, right? And that's just not how it works. You're basically throwing away all of the advantages that you have as a brand, as a non-commodity item, being able to present yourself on your website and explain to your buyers why they should choose you. Because when we talk about like e-commerce side of things, that's one of the things that blows my mind the most in the whole thing of bookings, direct versus OTA, whatever. Okay, the OTAs are your partners, right? But the principle of an OTA is to show the guest choice. And that choice is based on the lowest common denominator of any property. And that's a crappy generic description that is templated on, by basically, on many OTAs, you can't even put your own descriptions on there. A few photos that are the same for everybody, a photo of a room, a photo of the hotel from the outside, a photo of whatever, I don't know, a tree.
An Nespresso machine in the room.
Yeah, I was just about to say, if someone listens to anything when I ever like talk, I always mention Nespresso machines because it's always there. And my newest pet peeve is when they write toilet paper, because I'm like, come on, that is really, really not a value add. Like, that is just something that,
Yeah.
And I think it brings exactly what you were saying also to the point, because it doesn't say much about your property, about your hotel, right? To have information like this.
Not at all. And if you carry over the principles of OTAs, and OTAs are probably the most conversion optimized engines on this planet. There is literally, I can't think of anything else that is as conversion optimized. Amazon might come close, but OTAs are very, very narrow niched, and their prediction algorithms for your search are so accurate that in fact there was an article on booking.com's AI website where they said they had to tone down the accuracy of the prediction algorithm because it was freaking people out. That's how much they can predict on what you are actually looking for. And
that's so crazy. It's so
it
scary.
is crazy. You can actually find it somewhere there. They have a paper on booking.ai. I mean, it blew my mind.
That's
But yeah,
mind-blowing. And I think also, like, I went to a product talk like a couple of years ago, it must have been 3 years ago now, with one of the product owners at booking.com or product managers at booking.com. And she was saying like just how many A/B tests they are running on their site at one time. And it's literally like thousands at one time. And it's like my experience on the website will be like, could be absolutely completely different from Nadine's experience on the website. Like, it's just mind-blowing.
It is. And that's the difference between e-commerce that we see in huge traffic sites like booking.com, and that's why they can do it. And that's exactly why hotels can't do the same, because you don't have 10,000 conversions, which is considered like the minimum to do conversion optimization in the official, industry standard way. You just don't have the traffic on your site, but you do have the power to customize every single visit for your ideal audience. You can segment you can create messaging and the visual look of your website that will fit your exact perfect customer. Because on the OTAs, you will get anything that your price range fits to. And that is, I know from my own experience, trust me on this, it is not what you want oftentimes in your hotel, right? So other than attracting guests to your hotel through your messaging, you can also repel people who you don't actually want to visit, right? And that's something that people feel bad about saying, but there is a fit for every person, right? Somebody who wants a hotel like the Roxy, which is musically based and might not enjoy it. My grandma wouldn't go there, and my grandma shouldn't book there.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point as well, because we often talk about, oh, the ideal guest, or I want these and these people. But I think it's a very interesting point of view to also say your website, or in general, you also want to attract or not attract certain people. So, I mean, you have the power to do that. I do have a question. Why do you think, okay, you mentioned a little bit like the traditional hospitality and how it all works, but why do you think the hospitality industry is a little bit, let's say, lagging? And I mean this in the nicest way possible, but why are they lagging a little bit when it comes to that?
I think the main reason is that hospitality at one point decided to outsource all of its sales and marketing to outside agencies, right? OTAs, that can be other types of wholesalers, travel tour operators, whatever, DMCs, and by that, you automatically had a few waterfall effects, right? You had the elimination of staff from the hotel itself who could do this kind of work, right? Because there was no longer needed. The whole industry around selling travel as a product moved on, and hoteliers were not paying attention because they just didn't have the need to, or they thought they didn't have the need to. And over time, the costs of acquisition of these guests have gone up and up and up, and the hotel profitability has gone down and down and down, right? So at this point, like, my opinion is that OTAs are not your ultimate enemy, right? But you can do steps where you can build your own brand, and you should build your own brand, and nobody's stopping you from building your own brand on the side of it. But I don't think the hotels, other than big chains and large hotels with large budgets, actually have the capacity to do it in-house. And there is one other important thing that I saw when I was doing meta search is you need an intermediary who can understand performance of hotels in a cohort that the hotelier themselves can't see, right? So when I was doing campaigns and stuff, I was the intermediary. I would take my data, go to the next partner in line and tell them, hey, I can't tell you, exactly which hotels, but the general performance of the area around your clients is this, and your guys are doing this. There is a problem, right? And this is something that companies like yours, the guys that will aggregate data and be the intermediary and then apply the principles that they learn from that on all of their clients, I think that's a key factor that will drive the whole thing forward. I don't think that every hotel should have a e-commerce manager in-house, right? It's the same thing that you see in conversion optimization. The CROs are extremely rare and hard to get and hard to keep in-house. They mostly exist in agencies because there's just not enough interesting data inside of one company for them to be able to even do the job properly. And that's, I think, the same with hotel brand building. And it's getting, I think, it's even growing more. So from tech deployment, automations, building out messaging, optimizing for conversions, this is all something that should not necessarily be done in-house unless it's like a group that can afford something like that. right? And even then, for CRO, for instance, with conversion rate optimization, you should have a double checking point, right? You should have a control on that, as always. So that's my opinion of how it goes, how it went, and where hopefully it will go.
That's really cool. I really like how you're saying it shouldn't just be that you look at, maybe a hotel that's nothing like yours and just try and copy exactly what they're doing, but actually looking at, okay, what is actually relevant for the size of the hotel that we are, and also like working with experts who can actually help you to decipher and make those decisions as well. I think it's really cool point.
I have an interesting feedback that I got from a client that I'm working with to build out kind of like this marketing from zero. They're starting out, it's a renovated hotel, and the thing was that they said, I told them, look, in order, then coming back to story brand, right? You need to create your messaging. The messaging needs to be guest oriented. There's all these principles in the book that I would recommend everybody to read, even if you're in hotel management and you won't be doing that yourself, but you need to understand the principle behind it, right? But I said, look, it doesn't, you should have an outside partner for part of the ads and the traffic and all of this stuff, but nobody can tell the hotel story better than your own staff. There has to be somebody in the hotel who is able to convey your unique value and your day-to-day everything that will eventually end up as content on social media, and that will paint you as a business that has a face and a soul and is not just another line, another box on an OTA that is double room blah, and that's the book. And that then ties back into the e-commerce stuff, the e-commerce part, and the whole how to generate direct booking, because it's all one cascade of things, right? That first starts off, your business has to have a face and a soul, and it can't be just another room somewhere, right? You can't be a commodity. I mean, you shouldn't. So many hotels are, but I think they also overestimate on how little it takes to create awareness of themselves on, at least social media, if not, ad campaigns and the content on their site. So it's a Pareto principle thing, like 80% of the results comes with 20% of the effort. So that's something that I think that a lot of them think it's way more complicated than it is, especially today with all the automation tech and the devices where you can literally take a phone, walk around your hotel. We will figure out a story to put next to that, but people need a visual and a story element to it to really connect with you. And that's what you want in the end. You want the connection to what you are providing. And I don't think there's an industry more in need of connection than hospitality. I mean, it's,
yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's also, you want to go to a website and feel the emotion that you would feel as it is when you walk into a hotel, right? Whether it's the music, what kind of music are they playing, what are the smells, what are the vibes, and you want to have something like that on a website as well, and say like, hey, I can really see myself going here and enjoying this, and not just a generic website where you're like, am I gonna like it? Am I not gonna like it? I mean, we had this example in one of from our customers, where we were brainstorming and saying, hey, what's something special, like think, and then he's like, oh yeah, actually we have a really nice spot on our terrace where you can see the sunset. And and that's perfect, but there was no way of knowing that without having that. And no one else is going to get that knowledge besides, as you mentioned, the people working in the hotel, someone there who knows some kind of tips and tricks and what makes you you.
And then we get to the point of brave marketing. If you've tried to ever convince a client that they need non-generic, courageous messaging on their site and not a bland, yeah, we have a double room and you can book it for this price and you will get a bottle of wine, maybe, kind of, sort of,
Maybe.
So convincing people that they have to be how would you call it, non-bland, non-generic, right? In the way they present themselves. Everybody's afraid that they will get criticized, that they will reject a potential guest. And I'm like, but if what you stand for is rejecting those people, then that's a good thing. You don't want these people in your business, any kind of business, right?
Yeah, and especially because those people will also, that it basically, the circle closes itself, right? Because these people will then come to the hotel. Let's just take a hotel. They will be unhappy. They will write a review. The review will be unhappy. The review will be there forever and ever. And it's just a cycle, right? That needs to be broken. I do understand, though, I think for a lot of people, it can be a little bit overwhelming, right? Of having so many things, because where do you start? Like, if you talk to someone tomorrow, what is something where you would be like, hey, this is something you can do, a small step to start, to go into the right direction?
I would really use the phone and the video thing. Just walk around your hotel. Don't say anything. Take your phone. Every phone today has a good enough quality that it's basically what 10 years ago would have been studio equipment level, right? Take your phone, just walk around, take some videos, not of the room maybe, but what's a nice place around your hotel? What is something interesting there? Start from that. Put that on every social media channel you can. That's like a first thing to break through the ice. And then they can, do lists of what are we special about and stuff like that. But a lot of hotels think that they have to hire this whole media crew to do a simple video of their property, which, people like authenticity. Perfect is suspicious these days. The market has become so sophisticated in pretty much all the developed countries. And okay, we have hotels everywhere. But when you have a perfect production, it's kind of like, this has to be too expensive for me, right? That's what you think. But if you see the hotel owner, running around the hotel and explaining, oh, this is our restaurant and we have this awesome cook, and he grabs the cook and says, hi, say hi to that creates connection and a little bit more approachable. Of course, not for every brand. I get that there are ultra luxury brands, but for, most hotels are small business. They're not gigantic resorts with 500 rooms.
I think that's a really good point. And I think even from like a social media point of view as well, we're seeing that this more kind of like lo-fi quality, like lo-fi posts are the ones that are kind of kicking off. So for example, like, I'm not sure if you use Instagram at all, but there's these posts now, people aren't posting like the really highly filtered photos or like the really perfectly manicured. There's still stuff like that, but the kind of trends in terms of what other people are posting are like the blurry photos or like the not so perfect ones. And I think that, like, as a hotel, you don't have to go to that extreme. But I think what you're saying, Thea, like not being scared of it not being like 100% perfect, because I think that's where things are moving in terms of like content anyway.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think it also goes back to this whole people want to experience experiences. I know this is a weird sentence and I'm not sure it's completely correct, but it's kind of the emotion you feel if you look at, let's say, a blurry picture from like a warm summer night, you associate a feeling with it versus maybe like the perfect picture of a tree or something like this, just to really have a small example. But it's all about having this experience culture just growing and growing. And also for travelers now, after the pandemic, I mean, people want to go out again and experience something. And like you mentioned as well, go to different hotels, maybe go to different cities and see, is the city something that has the options that I'm interested in? Is the hotel something where I can see myself being? Is it in the part of town where I want to be? So there's just so much more.
And there's even more coming in part 2. So this was part 1 of our episode with Thea from MetricsDriven about e-commerce principles. So make sure that you stay tuned for episode 2, which will be coming out in a couple of weeks. And we'll dive even deeper into the topics that Thea covered today, as well as talking about metrics that can be used to measure success, and even looking ahead into the future for what to expect for the hotel industry and technology. So lots of exciting things still to come. And for those of you listening, please share your thoughts with us. If you think there's anything else that we've missed today, or if you have any questions about any of the topics that we've covered, please get in touch with us at welcome@hotelchamp.com, and make sure to follow Hotel Champ on all of your favorite social media channels. Stay tuned for more episodes in the future. Take care of yourself. Have a great day, and bye-bye.
Bye.